Hi, Yvonne.
Hello, Evie. How are you doing?
Fine. And yourself? Are
Excellent.
you pleasing anybody today?
Every day in very little ways.
Yes.
I
Hopefully,
am indeed.
ourself is the first one.
Oh,
But
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So just in case you're wondering, what are we talking about? So, we are looking at I Am Alone through the lens of the pleaser. Last week, we looked at the high achiever and how somebody who gravitates towards that high achiever, how they may start to feel alone in their world. And this week we're going to do the same for the pleaser. And I think I certainly have a bit of experience myself of that, of years ago, definitely. And more recently, a conversation with a client. And when you think about the pleaser and I am alone, what do you think? What do you think are the traits or the stories, the narratives of the pleaser, Evie, that begin that whole kind of sense of I am alone? What are those things that they're doing that will probably, when multiplied, make them feel that they're alone?
well, it is the narrative of the pleaser is that I need to do everything for everyone, so I am liked. That's the general idea. And when you tend to do that, you're depleting yourself, of course, and a self that is depleted is a self that is alone for sure, because they cannot give anymore. So it becomes like some sort of a vicious cycle of like, I give so much, I don't take anything back. Who is looking after me? Who is caring about what I want? And so on and so forth. That in reality is a narrative that we have created and we are perpetuating with our actions and the way that we want to show up. So it is a difficult one, because we, as women, we're nurturers, and we straight away, naturally, we want to look after people. But what we often forget to do is look after ourselves. And the moment we do that is when we start feeling very much that we are alone, that we are the only ones giving and nobody else gives back. Yeah. And that's not really true. It's just a story we tell ourselves.
Indeed, that's the narrative. That's the narrative. And interestingly, I know we've touched on this before when we talk about women being nurturers, and I'm really mindful how I use that terminology now, because I've had enough conversations with enough women now to understand that some of them actually think, I don't feel like a nurturer. I don't feel like they're the traits that are natural for me. And I think we need to respect and honor that, because not every woman feels like a nurturer, nor should everyone feel that they have to be a nurturer. Like every woman does not have to be a mother, or, you know what I mean? All of those things. So I think we have to be really mindful of the way that we kind of put that out there. But generally speaking, we have taken on the role, or many of us have taken on the role of being the nurturer. And so that does really easily lead us into that sense of pleasing others, or doing things to ensure everybody else is okay, and then gaining some level of gratification and pleasure out of people being thankful for the things that we've done, which is all very well and beautiful. But my take on that is always, at some point, people will stop being grateful and just expect. There becomes a shift. And so now the thank yous stop, because I just expect you to be doing those things. And the minute you try to stop doing those things, I'm going to have a problem with it, right? So it's a really kind of dangerous position to put yourself in. And you have to kind of be really aware of that, because when you start to feel that people aren't thankful, or perhaps they don't like being, but I'm still doing all these things for them. What comes up for you is the again, we talk about resentment and that feeling of nobody values me, nobody sees me, and I feel really awful. I'm doing all this stuff and there's no appreciation. And of course, that in and of itself almost takes you into yourself. So that feeling of aloneness is because, nobody is paying any attention to me. And it doesn't matter how much I give, there's nothing coming back. And that makes me feel insignificant. So there's all this stuff that I think that's tied into pleasing. And I think from my own personal experience of the pleaser, now this wasn't something that came up. In fact, this was way down the bottom of my list when I did my assessment last year. Thank goodness. But as I look back over my timeline, and I think in particular when I think about relationships that I've been in previously, years ago, that there was definitely a pleasing element in my behavior, which I'm not going to beat myself up about because hey, it was what it was. But being able to recognize that, how far out of my way did I go to make sure that this person was happy and everything, and they had everything that they needed, and I didn't necessarily pay attention to what I needed in that moment. Oh my goodness, countless times I really can see it now. I don't know if you've had that at all, Emma, whether that's come up for you.
Very much so. I mean, again, like yourself, the pleaser did not come up in like the highest of my saboteurs, as you said, thank God. But I definitely have recognized it in myself throughout. Even now, I can recognize it, especially around certain people, because that is also something that we need to understand. There might be certain people in your life that bring out the pleaser, and there are reasons for that, and we need to start analyzing what is that relationship all about and what it gives you, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's a big and a whole lot of different story. But what you were saying earlier with regards to nurturing, yes, you are very right. It's just that the condition is that women should be nurturers, and that is what we're buying in, especially when we have a very high pleaser, because you might not feel like being a nurturer, but you are thinking, okay, in order for me to be seen, in order for me to be loved, in order for me to be whatever, since I'm a woman, I must be a nurturer. So whether I like it or not, that's who I am, putting the hat off, and I'm showing up like a nurturer. So it is quite a deep thing, and something that people need to analyze and need to understand why they're doing certain things. Also, I mean, many times I have found myself wanting to, like, I'm Mediterranean, and like the Mediterraneans, like when you have people in the house, you want to do a lot of things for them. You want to feed them for sure. And but this is part of the culture. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you like, like entertaining, that you must stop do that now, because that is a sign of a pleaser. On the contrary, it is like balancing and understanding what does it do for you. Because I have found that the moments that I would like have like a lot of like I gain a lot from actually giving.
Yes.
When I do it from that place of like, wow, I really feel like it. I really want to do it. Because at that stage, there is no expectation. And when there is no expectation, there is no reason for you to feel alone, to feel that you're not heard, that you're not seen, or any of those other things. So yeah, that's how it sort of like shows up for me, and I think that there are ways to differentiate, and I don't believe in that sacrifice thing. And because again, it is quite cultural, but I think most cultures have it, that a mother needs to sacrifice for their children. However, that's when you start creating those senses of resentment, even towards your own children. And that's when other types of trauma come up, that you would never want for your own children, but you're doing it unconsciously in some respects.
Yeah, and that's so, you're so right there, Evie, about we as women we have adopted a lot of behaviors, narrative stories, simply because they've been so embedded into our culture that we have simply just taken them on. With the previous generation did it, and the previous generation to that did it, and it's just been, they haven't even said that you must do these things. You have just seen it, therefore you have taken it on, therefore you have become it. And that's why I think this time is so important, because what we're doing now is we're really pulling on that and just saying, well, hold on a moment. We have an opportunity to change those narratives. We have an opportunity to stop that behavior. We don't want to stop the underlying beauty of the pleaser, because like you were saying, when you do things for others and you do it from your heart and you do it because you really want, there is just nothing but joy and bliss in doing those things. When you're doing it under duress, when you're doing it out of expectation, when you're doing it because you've been told you better, that's a whole different thing. And this is that whole push-pull. Are you being pushed into it, or are you being pulled into it? Two very different feelings. And this week I was speaking to a potential client, and she had done the assessment, and the pleaser came up for her, and then she kind of almost went into like a whole beaten up rant when we had a conversation. She was so disappointed with herself. She just said, I'm a grown woman. Look what I've been doing. I've just been giving, getting nothing back. And I'm just like, wow, let's just bring the calm back and just understanding that these are narratives that have been driving you. They're not who you are. So going back to that whole thing, they're not who you are. And here's the great thing is, now that you see it, and it's just come up in an assessment, but you can see it in the things that you've been doing and how you've been showing up, you now have an opportunity to do something different.
Exactly.
You now have an opportunity to say, actually, I still want to help people. I still want to give, but I want to do it from a place of joy. I want to do it from a place of pleasure. I want to do it from all the right things, and not because I have to, or I'm supposed to, or it's expected, and all of those other things. That for me is the most important thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there is so much joy in giving, because I mean, community is what brings joy, and giving and taking is part of that. Is like who we are as humans, right? We're all working together towards something, in most cases, and we support each other, and we're moving forward, and we celebrate, and all these things. But this can only be done when it's reciprocated. If it's just like a one person gives all, and as you said, when it becomes like they're going to do it anyway, because we
Evie,
just
you're going to have to excuse
granted.
me 1 second, because somebody's knocking my door off.
I'm
really sorry.
Well, this is what happens when we are live, so no problems there. So let's see. I don't want to have a big pause here. It's like
oh, I love this. This is what I love about live.
I'm saying. I mean, it's live, so it happens. What can you do?
This is the beauty of live. I love this. I love it, because this is the real world, folks. This is what happens.
Yeah, of course. You do have a door, and somebody knocks it. What can you do?
Literally thumping it down. I was like, oh my goodness, somebody clearly wants to come in. And it was just dropping something off. Anyway, I apologize.
That's absolutely fine. So yeah, the thing is that we do have like we do take people for granted that continuously giving, and some of us might even do it subconsciously. We don't
Yeah.
really want to take them for granted, but it's always there, so whatever.
Yes.
On the other hand, there is also resentment from not only the receiver, the giver, but it could be from the receiver as well. Because the thing is that when you're giving from a space that it's not really from joy and from your heart, and because that's what you want to do, there is an expectation. When you have that expectation, the other person can feel it.
Yes.
So it becomes like, oh, now I'm obliged to reciprocate, or I'm obliged to give back, or I'm obliged to whatever. And that can create a huge rift in the relationship.
Indeed.
So there you go. You even create bigger problems for yourself without
Absolutely.
knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that
it's
deepens that
another
that
thing.
deepens that feeling of loneliness,
Oh,
right? Of being
absolutely.
alone. Because the rift is now appearing, and people are almost stepping away from you or stepping back from you
Yes.
in a way. So now it's like, oh my goodness, I felt alone before, now I feel really alone, and and I'm doing all this stuff and people are stepping away. What is going on? And so, yeah, kind of really being able to notice those patterns in your behavior and saying, I don't want to stop doing things for people. I don't want to stop helping people. However, I need to be much more discerning about how I do those things. And I need to be much more
Absolutely.
aware about what feels like the right thing to do, as opposed to me just doing it because I think I'm meant to and I should. And, as a parent, I must, as a child of I must, which kind of almost immediately brings up a sense of resentment if I must, uh, and I don't want to. And then on top of that, then you get that. And then on top of that comes the guilt and the shame of feeling bad, of feeling the resentment. So you end up with all these layers of feelings that are that kind of pull you down. And of course, when you feel down, for most people, what do? They step back, they pull away, they go into, they there's more of this. And so no wonder then that sense of I'm alone comes
Oh
to
yeah.
the surface.
I mean, I don't know if you have heard it, but I have heard it from clients like, what more can I do for them? Well, nothing. That's my answer. What have they asked you to do? They haven't asked you to do anything. So don't do anything.
Yes.
Leave it, and let them ask. If somebody wants something, they will ask. And I always say to people, as well as again to my clients, if you want something, ask for it. Because that's also the thing. Don't expect people to realize what it is that you want and whatever. Because when it comes to relationships, I mean, people shouldn't really guess, because we create narratives in our minds, in our heads, and we presuppose that the other people think exactly like us. And that creates those big differences amongst people. And then, relationships cannot be based on this. There is no true communication in a way. You're just there either giving, 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 giving. Somebody's taking, 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 because, well, why not? But there is no communication. And that is not good for anyone.
No.
And if you complain at the end of like a spree of giving, well, you will very likely get, why did you do it? Did I ask you to do it?
Exactly.
And then you'll be even more upset. So,
Exactly. Well, because then it becomes, how unselfish is that person? But actually, or how selfish is that person? Well, if they didn't ask for it and you just kept pouring it on, again comes that sense of, well, if you're pouring it in, someone's either going to just take it and expect it, or they're going to feel really uncomfortable with it and be stepping away from you. So for me, it is, and it's a little bit about, when you were talking there, just listening to the language that you use. Yeah, well, I have to do it for them, because if I don't do it for them, no one else will. Well, but is it your responsibility? And if it's not your responsibility, i.e. if it's not a child who is not capable of doing it for themselves, because, hey ho, that becomes that's the choice that you've made. That's the decision that you have made. And you have got to then say to yourself, okay, I have created this giving of this thing or this time, and it's my responsibility actually to now change that. Now is that time. And so when we start looking at it from a solution perspective, it's that opportunity for you to say, I need to start setting some really clear boundaries about what I do, what I don't do, when I do whatever it is that I do. Because you don't have to stop suddenly doing the things that you do. However, you do need to decide, well, do I need to be doing them as often as I am? Do I need to be doing them at all? Could they be done differently? Could they be done collaboratively? So, just to start opening up to what the other possibilities are. Because, pleasing everyone all the time, whether they're saying thank you for it or not, is so energy draining, and then you're walking around with nothing left for self. And, even when you start to think, yeah, I would love to do some stuff for myself, quite frankly, you just about got the capacity to think it, but not the energy to do anything about it. And that is not okay. So for me, one of the top things I think about kind of stepping out of that place where you may start to feel really alone and cut off because you're just giving, and people are taking, is to step into that boundaries mindset and to know that it's not always easy for people to set boundaries, especially if you never have. Absolutely. But actually, sometimes, like you were saying, Evie, it's about having a conversation and just saying, look, I've been doing this and I've been doing it for so long, and actually I'm really tired. and that's about being vulnerable, being open and honest, and saying, I'm really tired. How might we be able to do this better? I know this thing may still need to get done, but how can we do it either collaboratively or how often can I do it? How often can you do it? Just to even open up a dialogue and have a compassionate discussion so that you can set some boundaries that align with that.
Absolutely. And, you will probably be surprised, and because the other person or persons will also be surprised by what you're going to share. Because when people take other people for granted, they don't think, it's not like they think, oh, I need to do something to unburden the other person. They're like, oh, let them do it. They enjoy it. And you might not really enjoy it. I have seen that in real life. Like when I have noticed it and said to the recipients, take it a notch down, because these people are doing everything for you, but they are tired. You can see it. And like, no. I mean, if you take that away from them, is the language, they will not know what to do with themselves. That is what they like doing. And to me, this is like rings bells, basically. Because nobody just likes to just give. It's not natural in so many ways. You need to you can give and you can be a big giver, but you need to have something to give.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And that need is that you either need to reaffirm your value and value yourself and give yourself what you need, whilst also, I'm not saying either or, whilst also creating space for others to help and support you. Because I think one of the greatest issues that the pleaser faces is not kind of leaving any doorway open for somebody else to come in and do anything. And they have become so embedded in their habits and behaviors of pouring out that people do end up thinking exactly what you just said. Yeah, but that's what makes them feel good. That's what makes them feel whole. That's what makes them feel, because that's what they're seeing, because that's what they've always seen. That doesn't mean to say that it's true.
It's not true, and it's not right.
No.
because like people need to really take that breath and do things for themselves as well, because it also allows growth. You did
Yes.
mention earlier about the kids, and like, yes, up to an age you need to do things for your children, but there is a point at quite an early age actually
Yes.
that you need to allow that child to learn, to
Yeah.
do and learn, to make mistakes and learn, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Otherwise you're bringing up a child, an adult that is not able to do things, and where is their confidence if
Indeed.
you keep doing everything for them? Where is their
Absolutely.
independence? Where is their creativity? Where there are so many things we can discuss about this
Oh
particular
my gosh.
subject.
Yeah. And interestingly, if you continue to do everything for them, when they say, thanks very much, I'm off, and they leave, is it any wonder that you feel so empty, so lost? Because everything I've been doing for you, where are you going? What? Where? And I do remember reading a beautiful story, and I can't remember the woman's name, but she was saying, she had, I think, 3 children, and she said every year they had new sets of responsibilities, new sets of responsibilities. So I was doing less and less for them, because as I realized they could tidy their beds, that was their job. When I knew that they could, cook food, I let them cook food. So it's just that sense of letting go so that they can develop, and also that you can reclaim your time,
Absolutely.
your energy, and your space in a way that still feels nurturing, because you're still there for them, but that's a nurture of self and of them. Now, of course, that's a point of view, and that is my point of view. That's how I see it, and I think that that's such a great way to do, because actually wrapping children in cotton wool until they're in their teens and late teens and in their 20s is is doing them a disservice. Again, an opinion, because like you said, where's the confidence coming from? Where's that sense of, I can achieve things? Where does that all come from if they're constantly being hand held?
And the another thing that like amplifies the I am alone for adults that they have been nurtured like this is that they will look for other people that will be able to do everything for them, and not everybody is going to be willing. And
Indeed.
then these people will feel alone, will
Yes.
feel that, oh, what happened? Hello, I mean, my mom did everything for me. How come you're not doing everything for me? Where do I stand in this?
Yes.
And then again, problems with regards to the relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all these form of expectations, really. All of these narratives are one of the expectations that have been formed when we keep on running these narratives, because they're not just damaging to self, they are damaging to others. They are damaging to the greater good of others too. And so that doing this work and really raising that awareness and doing it from a place of compassion, because I think that's so important. This is not an opportunity to start beating self up or beating other people up for having taken advantage of you and all that stuff. This is about actually just being really aware, and then having that sense of compassion, just saying things need to be done differently here. I see how I have contributed to this situation, and now I have an opportunity to do something different. And some of that does begin with conversations, communicating with other people. So when I talk about setting boundaries, I don't think like you wake up tomorrow, you've got all these lovely boundaries, and suddenly you're pushing people back and they're like, what the hell happened? Is that people, get people on the same page, let them know what's happening, let them know the change, the breakthrough, the whatever that you've had, and how that is going to show up, and you want their support and all of that good stuff. Because relationships and communication are important. They are an essential part of our lives too.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's just a matter of communicating. Whatever our needs are, we need to communicate them. We cannot allow, or not allow, but like let other people guess, because guesswork is not really something that like is good for the relationships in general. The more we leave people to guess for who we are, what we stand for, what we're like, what we like, the less they're going to know us, and the less they're going to know who we are, what we want, and how we show up. And you cannot do that if you want to be authentic, if you want to really be true in your relationships. And it does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of introspection, and you need to give yourself time for introspection. So you cannot do everything for everybody. You need to start doing it for yourself. That's it.
And actually, that's the whole point. Trying to do introspection and being reflective and stuff is really difficult to do if all you're doing is gushing outwards, and you have left no time for those things. And those things are so important. They are such an important part of your personal and professional development. You need to be introspective. You need to be able to check in with self and understand your needs, because that will also help you to decide where you want to put your energies and who you want to put those energies in and when, which means that boundary setting becomes a lot easier. Right? So that when you do that work, boundary setting becomes so much easier because you have a true understanding of yourself. Asking for help becomes easier because you know when you're likely to be a little bit out of kilter and actually, I need somebody who can help me with this or that. And it will also give you that opportunity to reaffirm your value. Of course I'm valuable. Of course I'm valuable. Of course I want to give, but I also need to protect myself. I need to protect my needs. I need to protect my time. I need to protect my energy. And I can do that without cutting myself off from people and becoming alone. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't need to be alone to be mindful of who you are and what you want for yourself. And some people think that it's either or. It's not.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think, as I said last week, I love alone time. It's a valuable time because that's when I do my introspection. That's when I do my reflective. Do I need that 24/7? Absolutely not. Because I also need relationships. I need to be with people. So you find what feels like the right, and I say harmony over balance, what feels like a good harmony system for you. And that chops and change. Sometimes you need more time for self, that introspection time, and sometimes you need more time for the social, for the interconnection, for the being with others, and that's okay. And just to be able to move and flow with that is precious. And so for the pleaser, it's really important to understand that your needs are as important as all the other needs that you are fulfilling or trying to fulfill. And that when you start appreciating that, and when you start giving yourself that, the giving to others just becomes more joyful. It really, it truly does. It becomes more joyful.
And more meaningful as well, because not an autopilot.
Yeah.
That is something to consider as well.
Yes.
Because we tend to do things just for the sake of doing them, we forget why we do them as well.
Absolutely.
So
it's just another thing on another list that I have to do, as opposed to I'm doing this for this person. I'm really happy to be doing it. There's a sense of joy in doing it. Completely different sets of feelings. Completely different. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Evie. Fantastic. I think we're done.
I think we are. Even though for this topic we could talk in the evening, but let's be mindful of people's time and ours.
Absolutely. And of course, we cannot end any conversation without mentioning Permission to Thrive, our community. Listen, if any of the videos that you've watched in the past have resonated with you, and if you haven't seen any, please check out either mine or Evie's feeds, go back to our lives. We've covered the different saboteurs, the different ways that we think and behave, and how they can hold us back from being fully our brilliant selves. But if any of this kind of resonates with you, then please reach out to either one of us and see whether Permission to Thrive is a community that could be your family, could be that safe holding space that you can come and share and both kind of offload the things that are happening or that you feel are kind of stopping you from stepping into that power, but also be there to hold and uplift the others who are going through similar things or maybe very different things, but we have this connecting element of being midlife, of being in these transition periods. And we have the power to elevate ourselves and each other, and there's no better thing than community to make that happen. And there's no better place to make it happen than Permission to Thrive.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. QR code at the end of the video. So to tap any of them and have a conversation with us and see if we're a good fit. Evie, thank you so much, as always.
Thank you, Yvonne. See you next week. Thank you, everyone.